UFO Enemy Unknown put you in charge of the last organised resistance on Earth against something you did not fully understand yet, and losing badly enough on the map could cost you the war before you even felt ready for it. That dread has not been easy to find since. 2 modern games chase it, and they take it in genuinely different directions. This video is for anyone who played UFO Enemy Unknown in the mid-90s, or XCOM UFO Defense if you're in North America, and have spent the years since looking for the same feeling without quite finding it. 3 games, 3 answers. UFO Enemy Unknown because you need to understand what you're chasing. Xenonauts because it is the most faithful translation of that feeling into a modern interface. And XCOM 2 because it is what that feeling evolved into. They are different answers for different players. Enemy Unknown is a 1994 micro-pro strategy game, and it did something most games had not attempted before. It made the stakes feel personal before the tactical grid even loaded. You were managing a global response operation, bases on multiple continents, interceptors scrambling to bring down alien aircraft, a research tree that slowly unwrapped what you're actually dealing with. It's easy to get your first base placement wrong, and you don't find out until a terror attack turns up somewhere your coverage doesn't reach, and then you're scrambling to respond to a crisis you never saw coming, and before you've even worked out where the next base needs to go. Governments were watching too, independent of anything that happened on the ground. Ignore a region long enough, no interceptor coverage, no base nearby, and panic climbed there on its own. Enough panic, and a nation pulled its funding for good. Enough nations gone, and the council shut the whole operation down. You could win every tactical mission you fought on the ground and still lose the war this way, because it was never just about the missions. And your squad was permadeath. Your soldiers had names, ranks, statistics, and you tracked them over months. When Private Kowalski died in someone's garden in Belgium to a plasma shot from the fog of war, the game didn't soften it. She was gone. The name disappeared from the roster, and you felt it. That combination is what the itch is. Not just the tactics, the weight behind them. The specific anxiety of a soldier lining up a shot and missing, and the specific fury of an alien appearing from a tower nobody had scouted and taking someone out before you had even registered the threat. The knowledge that came with it was what happens on the ground affects what happens globally, that the aliens are escalating while you scramble to keep pace, and that your soldiers that you've trained and named and survived with are genuinely irreplaceable. None of that comes for free today though. The interface from the original, carrying all of it, has not aged well, and it shows in odd places. The alien movement report used to feel like the game watching you back. Menacing, a reminder that something was closing in while you weren't looking. Play it now though, and read as an interruption, a menu breaking up the action that the newer games do not bother with because they simply do not need to leave the map to make the same point. There are tiny sprites, crowded menus, mechanics the game does not explain, and controls that resist you. The first 2 hours are disorienting before they are tense. But it is worth giving it an hour or 2, not a campaign, because the original is where everything else began, and understanding it makes every successor easier to appreciate. If you do want to revisit it, at the time of recording, it's available directly on both GOG and Steam. The Xenonauts then picked up that exact design more than 10 years ago, and have been refining it since. Whether faithful turns out to be a compliment or a catch, though, is what the next section is actually about. Xenonauts arrived in 2014 from Goldhawk Interactive, and its pitch was simple. UFO Enemy Unknown, rebuilt with a modern interface, with the same priorities largely intact. It delivered on that promise with one honest catch. If you want a modern UFO, with the same priorities, the same shape, built natively for the system you're actually running it on instead of emulating a DOS-era one, this is exactly it. But what it doesn't do is take that feeling and update it for modern sensibilities. And if you've already played UFO, that gap can read as stale. Doing the same thing, just doing it without a fight on a modern rig. Ironically, without XCOM 2 that came years later, showing what modern sensibilities on this formula could actually look like, you might never have clocked that Xenonauts was playing it safe at all. In Xenonauts, the geoscape is still there. The base management is there, the research tree, the manufacturing, the escalating alien pressure, and the sense of a war you're running rather than just fighting. When one of your soldiers dies in Xenonauts, it has the same weight it had in UFO. You named them, you promoted them, you pulled them through the mission that nearly went wrong last time, and then they're gone. What Xenonauts improves is clarity, a clearer interface, systems that explain themselves, tooltips. The interception layer builds on what UFO already had. UFO let you fly the intercept too, choosing weapons and closing or holding distance. But Xenonauts adds an actual flank maneuver on top of that, and afterburners, not just a distance call. It's a little more fiddly than the underlying tension probably needs, but it is a genuine addition, and auto-resolve is still sitting there if you would rather not manage it. Usually the UFO comes down either way, though skipping the fight does also skip the loot and crew experience that comes with flying it properly. The strategic layer is also more navigable than UFOs without losing what UFO is doing. It feels like someone took the same design document, updated the presentation, and deliberately resisted the temptation to stand off the edges. Because the edges are part of the point. The tone is drier, the production values are lower, there's no cinematic mission briefing, no narrative urgency manufactured through camera angles and voice acting. What you get instead is the authentic texture of the original, a management problem with a permadeath tactical layer inside it, every decision carrying real consequence. Xenonauts 2 now exists also. It's out of early access and fully released. It keeps the faithful update going and now layers on a narrative layer of humans collaborating with the aliens, plus a threat timer that rises and falls with your results. Both apparently borrowed straight from XCOM 2. Everything else new is its own, though. A rotatable tactical camera that finally lets you see round cover instead of guessing, a passive resource spent pushing back infiltrators trying to sabotage your research, and arms dealing profits that taper off instead of printing money forever. The timer is the one addition worth being wary of, though. It works against the exact pace that made the original worth playing. Keep intercepting, keep handling the terror attacks as they came, hold the aliens off on your own schedule. The countdown comes on top of an alien invasion that was not obviously sort of tension to begin with. Xenonauts 2 is a careful, well-reviewed update. But it's not the recommendation for this specific itch, which stays with the 2014 original Xenonauts. But number 2 is worth a look if a sharp story and a ticking clock sounds like your kind of pressure. Xenonauts is a weekend start, though. Come in with a proper block of time and a clear head. Missions run 30 to 60 minutes. The base management between them adds another layer of decisions you do not want to make while tired. After a long break away, though, you will need time to remember where you were in the research tree and what you were planning next. So play it consistently. And if you have been away for weeks, this is usually cleaner as a fresh campaign than as homework. Now, if you want the same itch scratch with fewer rough edges, the third answer is for you. XCOM 2 is the mainstream answer and is a genuinely good one. Firaxis had already rebooted the UFO formula once with 2012's XCOM Enemy Unknown, a slower, more defensive game by most accounts. The presentation never pulled this channel in enough to make the jump personally, but XCOM 2 in 2016 is where the series finds its wider audience and its own identity, a bigger production budget, a coherent narrative, and a much gentler learning curve than UFO ever had. By the point the game opens, the air war is already lost. The aliens run the planet, and you are the resistance operating out of a stolen alien ship, not a funded global agency. The Geoscape's job then shifts to match, less about holding territory, more about reconnaissance and gathering enough supplies to keep fighting. That resistance framing runs through everything else in the game. The missions are tighter, more cinematic, built around specific objectives rather than open tactical engagements. Production values are a generation ahead of Xenonauts. Permadeath, though, is still there. Your named soldiers can and will die, and it still costs you. The strategic layer still creates pressure. The feeling of being slightly outgunned, always one step behind the alien research tree, always making the best decision you can with the information you have. That is all intact. And the tactics themselves are genuinely great fun. Flanking a target visibly changes the odds of a shot landing, and the range of ways a kill can actually resolve on screen is its own reason to keep playing. Never mind the graphical jump from Xenonauts on top of that. But the texture is different. UFO and Xenonauts are management games with a tactical layer inside them. XCOM 2 is a tactics game with a management layer around it. The balance has shifted. Missions are the main event, and the Avenger is the context. The sprawling, open, continent-spanning management pressure of UFO has been traded for tighter, more focused missions. For many players, that's an improvement. Cleaner, more contained pressure. Funding and base placement are gone, and so is the wider interceptor network. What's left is supplies and recruitment, managed largely through reconnaissance missions and mission rewards, rather than an open strategic map. You still push the war forward by succeeding in missions. Clearing objectives buys back time on the Aratat project, and reveals more of what's actually going on. But that influence runs through mission outcomes and recon, not the sprawling operational picture UFO put in your hands. War of the Chosen is the major expansion and the version to play. It adds resistance factions with distinct soldiers and abilities, a trio of named enemy hunters who pursue you across the campaign, and a covert operations layer that reintroduces some of the strategic depth the base game simplified. If you're returning to XCOM 2, or coming to it for the first time, War of the Chosen is the version to go to, though check what is included in current bundles at time of purchase. It would be the outright favourite of the three, without reservation, if not for one recurring wrinkle: the timer. Several missions run on a turn countdown, and the campaign itself is quietly ticking too. Successes buy you time, setbacks are certain decisions handed back to the aliens. As a mechanic, the intent is clear enough: give the resistance narrative some real jeopardy. But the strength of the original was never a countdown. It was a dread of a corner nobody had scouted yet, and what might be standing in it. The timer does not add to that fear. It adds a second thing to manage on top of it, and the invasion itself was already plenty. Enough players have felt the same friction that lengthening or removing the timer is one of the most commonly downloaded tweaks for the game. The fact that so many people reach for it is itself the argument. One irony is worth naming here. The instinct might be that a clock makes the game easier to dip in and out of, a clear reason to stop, a clear reason to come back, but in practice it does the opposite. Xenonauts and UFO let you set a session down and pick it back up with only the map to remember. Come back to XCOM 2 after a break, and the map is the easy part. The harder part is remembering exactly how much runway is left on a clock you've not been watching. A timer built to add urgency ends up adding a re-entry cost the early games never had. Most sessions, one mission is a unit of play. The Avenger management between missions is light enough to handle in 10 minutes or defer entirely. Missions need your attention. So this is not a tired evening game. It's for a session when you can make decisions. If you've been away for several weeks, this is usually clean as a fresh campaign than as a cold return to a dense strategic situation. So 2 real answers here, plus 1 piece of homework worth doing first. If you want the original edge scratched as faithfully as possible, then you have Xenonauts, the most honest translation of what UFO was. More demanding, less cinematic, the right amount of a rough edge, and built natively for modern machines instead of emulating a DOS-era one. Xenonauts 2 follows the same shape, now fully released, with a sharper story and a timer riding along. Worth a look, but not required. Save Xenonauts for a clear evening when you actually want to think. That old PC feeling was never just the mission. It was the machine around the mission. If you want the essence in a modern, accessible package, go for XCOM 2 with War of the Chosen. Better production, better missions, a gentler learning curve, and enough of the original feeling to satisfy most returning players. It would be the clean favourite here if it left the timer alone. That one wrinkle aside though, it's usually the right answer for most people watching this. So if you want to understand where all of it came from, spend an hour or 2 with UFO Enemy Unknown first. That's enough to give you the context every successor assumes you have. Then put it down and play one of the modern options properly. So the question we started with was where to find UFO now. The answer? Xenonauts if you want it exactly as it was. XCOM 2 if you want to see what it became. Cinematic, evolved, timer and all.